Good evening, citizens, and welcome to another Shattersong LARP Diaries episode. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be doing another episode on new LARPers and players who are new to the hobby and how they found it so far. So today I've got Amber on the line. Amber, say hello.
Hello, Amber. I think you were in the joke there, but we'll carry on rolling. It's fine.
Oh, I should have said Amber. I should have said say hello, Amber.
It's okay. We can cut it out in the edit.
No, I said say hello, Amber.
Oh, so now I'm ruined it. Hello, Amber.
So, hello, Amber. Welcome to
Hello.
the Shackleton LARP Diaries. You are a new LARPer, correct?
I am. Yes.
I'm gonna not exactly interrogate you today, but I am gonna ask you some very, very broad questions around
No,
your.
interrogate me. That's why I'm here.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Who killed Mithril Man?
Oh. Um. Sorry, my lawyer is he's shaking his head. I should probably leave. Okay.
Look, you
Bye.
need to cut a deal or it's over.
Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. So I'm going to ask you some really broad questions, and feel free to answer as broadly back as you'd like, or dive into the specifics. Dive into your opinion here is fact. What you think is true might
So
as well be.
true.
Don't worry about it being correct, because I really want to get a nice perspective of what it's like from someone entering post COVID. I think I haven't done one of
Hmm.
these post COVID before, and also with many as fate around the corner. You've done, was it two Empire
Yeah, I did
events?
E3 and E4 last year.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've done two so far. So you've got like a good taste, like a good nibble at the charcuterie
Yeah.
board of LARP. And I want to see if you're ready you're ready for more.
Charcuterie board of larp. Who's the cheese and who's the sausage? I don't know, but anyway.
I think the part that everyone wants to play is like iLARP games or Bastion or like those parlor LARPs. But then the cheese for everyone has anyway, because it's a great part of the board, is going to be Empire because like the sort of Venn diagram of people who do those little LARPs and people who do Empire is basically a circle,
Interesting.
I think. But that's my opinion. And as a disclaimer to all of you listening at home, hello once again. I'm back from the Alps. Everything I say is entirely ill-informed. I am not correct most of the time. I'm biased. I only see certain things in the field, and I will ask leading questions. And by the end of this, I want Amber to entirely echo my personal political opinions inside the Empire, and we're just going to keep yelling something until it becomes true.
Yep, I'm
Perfect.
already halfway there. That's cool.
Cool. Fantastic. So, question number one, Amber, for 100 thrones. What got you into LARP?
Oh, see, my first sort of go-to would be obviously you, but it's your podcast. I don't want to give you like a bigger ego than you already have. So I actually think there are some other members of Black Scar and Navarre who got to me first before we started talking about LARP, who sort of just introduced me to Empire. They were trying to tell me the mechanics of it, but it was sort of the idea that out there somewhere in the dusty hills of wherever LARP is, wherever Empire is, I can't remember where.
Let's call it
That there was people
slightly
uh,
north of Oxford.
slightly north of Oxford, um, down there. There were people sort of living out this just incredible weekend, and it really sang to like young Amber. And if I had known about it when I was 12, I would have been frothing at the mouth. Um, so I think just the idea of going away and escaping from modern day and just falling into like a fantasy land, that was like the USP that really got me. I didn't even know about alternative labs at this point. I thought, Empire might be the only one out there. And I was just like, cool, I'll go and give that a go. And then the more I spoke to that friendship group, the more I spoke to you, obviously, I just heard so much positive feedback about it. And I guess you want to learn what your friends are happy about, what gets them excited, why they're giving up so much of their time to something. And I was like, I'll go see what it is. If not, then it's a weekend away from work and from the modern world. So that was, yeah, that's what gripped me. But then the more I started hearing about it, the more I was like, yes, I'm in. Take my money. I'm going.
Hmm. Was there a moment for you that you said the take my money moment?
Hmm.
What moment was that? Because for me, it was the first time I put on my costume. I was like, oh damn,
Hmm.
this feels good.
I think it was hearing about the battles, actually. Like I'm not a very competitive person, I don't think. People would probably say different, but um I like just the idea of going into a battle for me was really cool. Like you just the closest I've ever had to that is like tag rugby, which is nothing compared to being on the field. Um and that grabbed me, and the the idea that the PvP kind of side of it is that you're generating your own game, and what you generate can then generate things for others. And like this links exactly back to when I was a kid and being like in a playground at school. I would always come up with like ideas for games, and then like seeing everyone play those games and have fun was like a huge, like it was a thing that I'd look forward to, like going into like school breaks and stuff.
Mm.
And that is like just something, it seems like that on a bigger scale. Um, and it's a great chance to like meet new people who have similar interests. And but yeah, battles. As soon as someone was like, yeah, you can go hit an orc with a stick, I was like, I'm in. Take my money.
Nice,
um
nice. Because I've whenever I sort of pitch to people, yourself included, I always start off with imagine like being in Game of Thrones, and I imagine actually acting that out. I don't sort of lead into things like orcs and magic because people just go, oh, it's that D&D thing. That's a bit
mm,
nerdy, isn't it? But when you say it's like immersive theatre, you see their eyes light up and you go, ooh, okay, that's a bit different. But for you, it sounds like it wasn't the case there. It was when the prospect of violence came into play.
yeah, well, I mean, when you phrase it like that, I should probably say no. But for me, when people were explaining it to me, because I love theatre, I've had a theatre company, and if someone had pitched it more as theatre, I think I maybe would have been quicker to sign up for it. Because when it was pitched to me, I knew about LARP, I knew like about reenactment, but I kind of thought it was just battle, and people, sort of a bit like the Glory Square. I kind of thought it was people sort of meeting up and then hitting each other with sticks for a bit, and then going about their day. And I didn't realize just how immersive and how theatrical the world was until I was there, and that for me really like gripped me and hooked me in. And I was obviously considering joining Navarre before I even had heard about Varushka, and that aesthetic just drew me in immediately. I love books about like fairy tales and people like forest elves and things like that. And for me, like not knowing much about Empire, that's what Navarre was.
Mm.
Um, and I was like, cool, if I can go and be, like a wood elf with a sword for a weekend, then amazing.
Fantastic, because like you said there, you've got your own theatre company. Your background's in theatre, and but you hadn't really come across this before. But slight change of question, not what got you into LARP, but what the question is, what successfully got you into LARP? And the reason I ask is, at the moment, there's many as Fate is the new kid
Mm-hmm.
on the block, and there's more people coming into the hobby all the time. But like with any sort of growing hobby, there's good and bad ways of getting people into it. There's good and bad advertising, right? Like what parts of the, I guess like sort of the friendship hearsay circle really got you into LARP, but then also what parts put you off? Was there anything that you heard when, we were talking about LARP that you thought, wow, that sounds dreadful. I never want to do that. And then also vice versa. Was there anything that you heard that was like, well, apart from hitting orcs with sticks, that you thought, oh, hello, this sounds like it's going to be tasty?
Yeah, I mean, I can like immediately identify three things that put me off LARP really quickly. The first was kind of the social stigma around, going and sort of being a child for a weekend. My group of friends, back home and stuff are really, they're not anti-LARP, but they just don't understand it very well, and they just think it's a bit weird and a bit. And it took me a while to get across that bridge of going, actually, I don't really care what other people think. If I'm having fun, then surely like that's something my friends will appreciate. And it has, like they, every time I talk to them, they want to know more, and they think it's really cool. And it was just all in my head. But I think based at university, when there was a sort of LARP reenactment group, they got a lot of sort of side looks and a lot of, oh, that's a bit weird, and just it feels like no one wants to be a kid anymore. So to find a community of people who are willing to just sort of let everything go and go be imaginative and stuff, that really drew me in, because I think I've lost that coming into adulthood, and I don't think I am as imaginative or as curious as I was as a kid. So to have that back is such a gift, and I think that is a really cool section of LARP and why people get into it. Then I think the second thing was I've forgotten already. There was three things. The second thing was oh my gosh, I'm not good at this at all. What was the second thing? I was so confident with it. Never mind. But that was the main thing anyway. Oh,
Like
the
the
second
social
thing
stigma.
was
Oh yeah. Number two.
yeah, yeah. The second thing was I have a background in theatre, but I've never particularly been good at like improv theatre. And for me, like when people were talking about LARP, I was like, oh, it's it's an improv world, so I'm going to really struggle. I'm going to have to be really witty all the time. I'm going to have to come up with smart quips to things. And if you are a witty person and you are really good at communicating, then that helps. But it wasn't as a jump as I thought it was going to be. I think for me, having done two events, the first event was about playing the world, getting to know the the ins and outs of Empire, the geography of the land, the geography of the people, the different cultures, and then the second event was when you play the game, and that's when you come in and you start, making the interactions that mean something. And I mean, for people who are a bit more confident than I am, you could probably do that in your first event, but I needed those sort of two stages to sort of warm up to the world and understand what time in versus time out is, and where you sort of draw the line on your role play.
Mm.
So it was the first event is just learning LARP, learning Empire, and the second one was learning how much fun I could have with it, which I definitely did. And the third thing was probably more of like a personal one. So I've got PMDD, and I really struggle with when I was acting. I'm more of a director writer, but when I was acting, I couldn't be very consistent with it because I could have mood swings at the drop of a hat, and I would have sort of like panic attacks and anxiety. And LARP, I think I said to you on the way out of E1 that it's a way that I can connect with acting again, and it's a way that I can do it in a judgment-free zone. There's no pressure to perform. If you need to go take time away, you can. And even if you just turned up as yourself and were playing yourself in this world, I think you could still have so much fun. Um, and I think there's
Totally
probably a lot
agree.
of
Yeah.
people who do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two things there. I mean, the first is like you just said, the turn up as yourself with a lick of fantasy paint on. I think
Mm,
that's the best way to LARP personally, because the alternative is you turn up with like a different psyche, a totally different character, different moral codes, and so on and so forth. And especially for your first LARP, that's going to be really difficult, because I think even professional actors could, they've got to have a few roles and warm up and get used to that and practice a few times. And when
yeah.
you're camping, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's rainy. There's lots of unknowns around you. Maintaining that consistently is quite hard. But the alternative is going in by yourself with a lick of fantasy paint on. You don't need to think about how you'll react to something, because you just do. And
Yeah.
especially if you don't know what the hell's going on, you just go, what?
Yeah, and I think having the little I'm new to Anvil, or this is my first time in Anvil line, is really, really helpful. And there was not a single person who turned around and was like, okay, well, I'm not going to interact with you because it's your first time. They would just they'd ask me about my character's background, or they would say, what have you got up to so far, or what do you think about this bit of plot? And if I didn't know about it, they would explain it, and it was just so lovely. And I'm sure we'll come on to this in a bit, but Barushka is just amazing for new players. I obviously haven't really got to try the others, but yeah, that's it's really pinched me, and I love that community now.
Mm,
Uh,
love
yeah,
the family.
the family, yeah, the cousins.
Cool. So, you also mentioned that you said that you're sort of maybe more confident people might be able to do it in a single event,
Mhm.
which is doing yourself a disservice. I think you're a fantastically confident person.
Oh,
But the
thank you.
second part was around, you said warm up, because you've been to two events so far, and you said sort of the first one was a warm up, and then you really got into it the second time round.
Mhm.
Uh, that's a really good segue into my next big question. So, question number two: what was your first event like? This warm up?
Amazing. I don't even think there is a single word that can capture how awesome it was. Because I was reading about it, I was trying to. I did that thing where I'm sure a lot of new like Empire players do, where they hop on the wiki and they try and absorb as much information as possible. And I was there, like I remember being in the car with you on the way to the first event, just trying to cram every inch of the wiki like into my brain. And that if anything, I think that made me a bit anxious because I was like, I don't know enough, I don't know enough, I'm not going to be able to get involved on the scale I want to. But if you kind of just drop that, if you learn enough about your nation and you learn enough about uh, who you are as an archetype and things like that, you can really navigate it well. And I remember driving away at the end, watching sort of the sunset. It was like the end scene of a film,
Mhm.
and just going like, I don't know how I'm going to talk to people on the other side about this. Like, I just don't know how to articulate how awesome it was. And I think it could have gone the other way. I think it could have really easily sort of, if you're someone who's maybe going in really apprehensive and you're not willing to throw yourself in, I can see why some people might have a bit of a shaky first step. But I think as soon as you go back and you keep putting time into learning the world and to learning the people and just going to have a good time, you can really get a lot out of it. But I was surprised at how much I sort of learned about myself there as well.
Mhm.
Um, there was just moments like my first battle, my first yeah. So I did the new player skirmish, which is incredible. I really recommend any new player do that. Because I would have been so lost in my first battle, which was against the cold sun, and I
Oh
really
my gosh,
underestimated how
yes.
scary people in masks can be.
Oh gosh,
Because
watching that from the other side of
in
the gate was
Oh, it was
fantastic.
terrifying. Like, and I didn't realize there were going to be pyrotechnics and smoke, and I was like, wow, people are really in this. And it, as you're walking up, I felt fear. I felt real emotions, but my brain was like, this is pretend. But when you're in that moment, you're not thinking that. You're thinking like, sink or swim. You've got to do this. Um, and yeah, just walking up, seeing them stand still and smoke, and I was really lucky to have two other pine wheels with me. Um, and I kind of just looked at them and was like, okay, I get why you guys are so in this now. And that for me was, if I can keep doing this and have like this this feeling, I was like, this is awesome. But I think where I've really fallen for LARP was E2 actually. E1, I was like, this is fun. I could, probably come here with a casual group because I didn't start alone. I started with another new starter who didn't have as much. I don't think they liked the hobby as much as I did, because they haven't really wanted to come back. But starting with someone new is really helpful because
Mm.
you're both going through it together. But when I got to the E2, I was like, okay, I'm going to actually start trying to get involved with plot. And that for me is when it really came alive. And it's where I really felt like I could give something to this world instead of just going to maybe take away a good time. Which, yeah.
Mm.
Uh,
Definitely
yeah.
the first that 4 p.m. on the Friday new player skirmish. I understand that PD want the event to be as accessible as possible for people at work, right? You finish work at like 5 or 6. The event starts at 6, so it's really hard to get there. And but once you're there, you want to be sort of diving into the plot and the real thing. But getting there on a Friday and being able to take part in those new player skirmishes, new player X, new player Y, they're absolutely fantastic nowadays. And I never, personally, I never did that. And I
Mhm.
had Black Scar back in 2015 sort of just train me on the spot of like, right, this is how you pull a blow, this is what cleave means, here's how to run around and have fun. But doing it with new players, and even though it's a new player skirmish, there was what 100 people there at least
Yeah, it
150.
was really cool. But I
Yeah.
think not even like learning the skills of actual LARP, it helps you identify new players. And there's a couple people who were on that new skirmish with me who who are in Varushka, and I've bumped into them multiple times, and we've been able to sort of check in on each other, and it gives you your own boat of people and your own point of contact if you get lost or you lose your group of friends, which is really easy done. Like Anvil's huge.
Mm.
Um, and you know where they are, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and having that chance just to run around, no risk to your actual character, and there's no like, oh crikey, it's my first time, I don't want to crash or I don't want to say anything wrong. It's run around screaming, lopping off limbs and hitting orcs with sticks. Well, hitting
Yeah,
other
I mean,
Imperial citizens with sticks.
yeah, I was gonna say it's so much more than that, but that's what drew me in. I do think this might be something for PD, but when I joined, I was a little like, I would really love because you get your new player pack, which is super exciting. You're like, wow, this is starting to feel real. And I kind of think maybe in those new player packs there should be some sort of like written schedule of those new player skirmishes. Maybe there was and I just missed it, but it was only because I'd seen them on like the wiki that I knew they were happening. And there's a lot of new players that I now know started at the same time as me that missed that because they didn't know it was happening. So if there was sort of maybe a clearer way of communicating, because I didn't know that there was, like introduction to military council, introduction to public speaking, which um, those are also really, really cool and probably another chance to go meet people. But I don't know still where that's accessible in like a broader sense, the game, but
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure.
is. It is around, like you said. It's on the wiki, but you've got to know to go and find it to get the times.
Mm.
They write it on whiteboards, but you've got to be at the God tent to go and see that. And
Ah,
again,
okay, okay. And
nobody
when
that's
that's busy,
there.
that's quite hard to see.
Exactly, exactly. And as part of the actual process for buying a ticket, you create a character. You say, right, I'm coming to E1 2025, and then you you pay for your ticket, and that's it. There's no mandatory read this rule or hey, are you
Mm,
you look at this schedule. So PD's very good at having things available, but where I would agree with you, and I would go further, and personally I would critique them is the way it's presented isn't very good for new players. It's almost there because all the right things are happening, but they need to be advertised a bit better. Maybe outside
yeah.
Moorish or something, or as part of the ticket process, like tick this box if you're new, and then like you
Mm.
suggested, you get like a little timetable in your character pack. You get sort of some invitations or an email before you arrive at the event of, hey, 4 o'clock is a new player skirmish. 2 o'clock is the military council introduction, that kind of thing. And I think
Yeah,
I totally
I
agree. That'd be great to see.
yeah, and I understand they've been doing it for like what 10 years. Like, it's been a long, long time.
Mm.
Um, and so these might be changes that they don't feel are necessary, but I think as a new player, it would have had just another level of what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure. But there I don't get me wrong, I didn't feel unsupported at any time. I knew where I could go if I needed help. I knew that there were egregores around that I could go to, and I've never felt too out of my depth at any point. And I think when you step into this hobby, you might feel that you can't ask for help because you might ruin someone else's game. But that's not the case. There are so many seasoned players around who are like, actually, I would really like to offer you the chance to go and do things, and they might give you little tasks or just point you in the right direction. And that's, I think, the community is like kept me coming back because there's so many wonderful people in that like hobby.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
couple
Did you
pointers would be great. PD.
did you apply that in your first event actually? Because I totally agree. Saying, oh, I'm new to Anvil, opens doors that sometimes wouldn't be open to other players. Like being new, those experienced LARPers on the other side of the conversation are pretty good at getting you involved. Did you get like sucked into anything that was pretty cool, pretty noteworthy?
Um, I think like I really got sucked in at E2. E1 was very much so I guess a bit of context might help. So with E1, we were obviously Varushkins, but we were positioned in like we were camping in Navarre.
Hmm.
And we were camping with Black Scar, who are friends, and they have their game. And coming in as someone who's new, who wasn't part of their camp, I kind of had to. But I felt anyway that I maybe had to abandon their game, which I thought I'd be more involved in because they're my friend's OC. And I had to sort of go to Varushka, and I always obviously had you, and I had a couple of other pine wheels, but it did kind of feel like I was going somewhere uh, like abroad, and I had to go and find out what the culture was. I had to go and find out the customs and what the people were like, and I thought it was going to be much harder than it was. I remember sitting in a gambling tent, and we were at a table with people who I just did not know, but it felt like I'd known them for years because the conversation they were offering. And that was my first sort of feeling of being okay. You're a Varushkan. This is how you act, and this is what um, the social norms are like. And actually, it's not as scary as it seems. But E2 was when things really kicked off, and I really got a chance to role play outside of, I guess, my safety net, which at this point is my friends back in Navarre, you and the Pine Wheels. I had to sort of go alone. And I ended up going to, the military council tent where the standard of role play is really high. And watching that, I was like, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. And I made friends with some other outposts and Vales in Varushka who I don't think you guys really know very well yet, but
Nope, not a
just
clue.
being with just being with them and having time to LARP with people I don't know is really helpful. Like I know in everyday life we're like, don't talk to strangers, but Empire is the complete opposite. Like go and talk to
Take
strangers.
candy from the
Go and
strangers because they usually
eat
are
candy from
kids.
the strangers. Yeah.
Take
Um
the drinks, take the conversations, go down the dark alleyways.
yeah, just throw all caution to the wind. Just go and do the things you wouldn't do in normal life because you can get away with it. I mean, there are some consequences, but you can get away with it and come away a much better person.
Mm.
And yeah, go on.
I
Sorry.
was going to ask if actually, rather than talking about, I mean, it sounds like you loved your first event. Do you want to
Mhm.
talk about your second event instead and talk about the, like, let's call it like the tier two LARP? So tier one is like, hello, I'm new and this is a sword.
Mhm.
Tier two is like, right, I'm now, I've got friends, which is better, you're better for me. I don't have any fucking friends. You've
So
got
true.
not one but two swords. You've got armor, you've got plot, you're reading the winds and you're understanding what's going on rather than just being told you realize that there's some depth to those revelations and to those winds. Talk to us more
Yeah, I
about
mean,
what happened at E2.
oh, so E2 actually starts a couple months before, so a couple weeks before, where
Oh, sorry, I should
the
say E4, which was your second event.
E4, yeah,
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 yeah.
um,
E4
where
2024.
the yeah, the phys rep for Alderaan the Fair put like a message in the Varushkan Discord and was like, "Is there anyone who'd like to be my adjutant for E4 because down London?" And I sent them a message. I didn't really think that I was going to get a response because they're quite an established figure, and I was like, okay, they've probably got loads of people. Like this is a really cool opportunity, and um like I found myself actually like being what's the word uh like I was looking forward to it and I was like, okay, don't get your hopes up too much, but this is a really cool opportunity. And it was my first time where I felt like I had a shot at something in game, which got me really excited because I love the military game of Empire. And we exchanged sort of in character emails and messages, and then it was like, cool, I'll meet you here. We'll, take you to the military council tent, anything you need. And it was just the most loveliest response. And I felt really prepared to go somewhere that I'd felt slightly anxious about walking into or going to witness. And that got me really excited for E2. And then aside from that is also, we have the Pine Wheels, which is a really uh, it's like an infant group, and there's so much that we can do with it. And we've already had people who are similar to me, like new players who want to get involved, and we're growing that branch and that group of mercs. So
Mm.
I had a lot of game to get, you know, some
Get your teeth
my
into.
teeth into. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, literally. And then what happened? So just on the run up to E4, one of the Black Scar members reached out to me and was like, "I've got a task for you. If you'd like to take it, you'll get paid." And I was like, "Cool, okay, even more stuff to get involved in." And at this point, as a new player, I still am learning the lines between what is OC and what is IC. So, someone comes to me with a task, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Like that's probably like an IC thing." So we get to the Friday of E4 and time in starts. We're all sat outside of our tent playing. I don't know what we're playing. We're probably eating cheese, let's be honest.
I
Um,
think we were, yeah, cheese and bread.
Cheese and bread,
We'd done our shop for Chadamir, the squirrel,
the
and
squirrel, yeah.
we're getting ready for dog racing that evening.
Yes, we were. Which we'll get onto later because that was awesome. But we then a dark shadowy figure approaches me and like taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, "Ooh, okay." And OC, I know this dark shadowy figure very well, but I see they're a complete stranger to me. And I was like, cool. And they basically hand me a letter. I think it was a letter in like a sealed vial, and a ref showed up, and this figure was like, "You have sort of 20 minutes to deliver this. You don't open it, you don't talk to anyone about it, or else." It was very threatening and really scary. It's the first time I've been scared of anyone in game, even though this was my friend. And I was like, "Oh wow, okay, that's cool." So completely disregard what they say, run back to you guys, and I'm like, "Hey, this just happened." And obviously in Verushka, when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, you go to your wise one. So you guys, immediately pointed me in their direction. I ran over to them and I was like, this is the situation. And then, he spoke me through what he thought it was. He didn't really understand. And basically he was like, we'll open this letter together. Like, okay, cool. We open it and it doesn't really mean anything to both of us. I think it really loosely mentions a league person who I'm supposed to be delivering it to. He looks at like the potion, I guess it's attached, and he's like, I don't know what this is, but there's a physic who's in that tent who might know what it is. So then I've got to run in and Dubravka, who is our battle strategos, I think. I think that's
Yep.
Their title. Um, I think they're pitching themselves for a really important role. Something is happening because everyone is listening really intently. And I'm like, I'm really sorry. Can I steal this man? To take him outside, and I'm like, do you know what this is? I'm so stressed. I've never felt this stressed in my entire life. I think people are gonna die. And my character Danica is, she's quite lawful, and she doesn't know what this is. She's freaking out because she thinks the Pine Wheels might be in danger, and the guy's like, this is an antidote. This is, it's quite harmless, I think, but without the context, we don't know. He was like, just deliver it. You'll get paid, and you've now got two people who know that you're completely innocent to this exchange. And I was like, okay, cool. So I take it over to the league, and everyone's wearing masks, and I was like, this feels really scary. And I walk up to the Crimson Reapers and I was like, this is for you guys. Please don't open it until I've left. I don't know what it is. And then I run away. Now, the dark shadowy figure who gave me
Suspicious.
this is suspicious, yeah.
Don't open it until
Um,
I'm at a safe radius, please. It's not
I
a
mean,
grenade.
they listen, so maybe they're the fools. But I ran away really, really quickly. And then I was like, actually, I want to see how this plays out. And
The
like the
curiosity of the
dark shadow,
proverbial cat.
yeah. Like the dark shadowy figure in my head was like, don't stay, don't hang around. But I was like, Danica wants to know what's going on. So I crouched behind these bell tents. And there's a lot of sort of league people walking past. They're giving me really dodgy looks, and I was like, okay, this is quite spicy. And they open this letter, and everyone starts freaking out. And so, as a new player, I don't really know what I've given them. I don't at this point know what has happened. And I start going, I've just killed someone. And I don't know why I leapt to that conclusion, but the way they were reacting to the letter, I was like, someone is gonna die. And they all start screaming for like an apothecary or a phys rep, a physic, sorry.
Mm.
And the ref is explaining to the Mosi what it is. And then there's this one Crimson Reaper who's wearing like this sort of red and black mask, and he spots me crouching behind the tent and starts like stalking towards me. So I peg it. I'm like, I'm not hanging around to see how this plays out. Start running, and then a couple of them start running after me, and I just barrel into this tent where people are having this meeting, and I was like, if I give you these rings, at this point I don't really know what rings are worth, so I'm like, here's 8 rings. Can I just sit here and pretend to be one of you guys? And they're like, yeah, sure, you okay? They were really lovely. I was explaining to them, very breathless, about what was going on, and I was like, can you go and sort of see what's happening? And they popped out, they had a look, and they were like, yeah, there's a man sort of rummaging around people's, houses and spots, sort of trying to find where you are. And so I go out the back of their tent, start running towards, I think it's the marches, where then I sort of stop next to a guy who's cooking something on a fire and, was talking to him about what's going on. And it was 20 minutes of just the most intense chase. And it felt like a police chase in a movie. I was like, this is
Oh,
really
cool.
fun. And then obviously I get back to the Pine Wheels tent where I see that you and a couple of the other Pine Wheels are talking to some of the members who I know have just handed me that letter. So immediately Danica is like, oh my God, I've been set up by my own team. I can't trust anyone. I've got a meeting with Alder the Fair in 2 minutes. What do I do? And I felt really, really stressed. So um, we've got a Volov in our group who is like, look, go speak to Alder because you probably don't want to piss them off. Then go to the militia tent. I was like, okay, that's a good sort of series of events. Went Alder briefed us on how military council was going to run, what times, places we needed to be, and it suddenly felt like, oh, I've now got a job. I've got responsibilities outside of my own game. And that felt really cool. But at the time, it was just another level of pressure. And as someone who's never met the militia or doesn't really know how consequences in Anvil play out, it's quite scary. And I felt really sort of like, okay, we've got to just go to the police because that's what Danica would do. With Varushkins, we uphold the law. And so I go into the militia tent and they're like, hey, do you want a donut? And I was like, I've been freaking out for 20 minutes over this. Like, I've been really scared. And they're
That's
just the
such a cop
loveliest
thing to
people.
do. Like Chief
It
Wiggum
is
style.
really
You want a
cop, yeah.
donut?
You know, donut. But like, there's two of them behind the desk, and they're just the nicest people. And I've been freaking out about going to them, um, and everything I felt was so real. And they just, asked me what was going on, and they were like, "Don't worry, we'll handle it." So at this point, I kind of think, oh, this is great. I've had 20 minutes to an hour of really intense role play, and I can chill out. But no, Anvil stops for no man. So I am stood round the military council tent, which I'll come back to in a second. And that in itself is really intense. Watching these other role players go through battle plans and talk about things happening in the Empire, which I really wanted to learn about. And then someone taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and it's one of the Crimson Reapers in a mask. And he's sort of hissing at me like, "What do you know about this letter? Who gave it to you?" And military council, if you're not speaking, you tend to be quite quiet. But I had to, talk to this guy, and I was sort of stammering through. And the other adjutants were looking at me, like, "Oh, what's going on? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I think I'm going to die in like 20 minutes."
This thug
And
is harassing me.
yeah, and I don't know the Crimson Reapers, so they're quite intimidating. But then I turn back from this guy. He walks off. He's quite satisfied with my answer. He goes like, "Okay, like you should probably go back to the militia tent in when this is done." Then I turn around. I look across the tent, and I see the shadowy figure who gave me this letter. And so my heart starts beating really fast, and I'm like, they're coming to kill me. And at the same time, I think something happened to the Empress, or there was a threat to the Empress because like her guard like really like they sprung forward. And I was like, what is going on? Is it really that big a threat? And it was just my mind making it much bigger than it was. But I was like, maybe I have to run. Maybe I have to just go. And then someone from the militia turned up and he was like, can you come with me? So I ended up having to leave military council. I went and they were like, can you give us more details on who gave you the note, how you know it's linked? And this is where the ICOC bleed for me got a little bit confusing because in game, someone had given me a potion, they'd given me a letter, and they were like, you need to take this or else. So I described that shadowy figure to them.
Mhm.
Um, but also, what had happened previous to the time in, someone from Black Scar had said, this is a letter, this needs to accompany the stuff that the shadowy figure is going to give you. So when the militia mafia, when the mafia,
It's
I mean
some
they
people's
basically
opinion.
are.
The militia are just a mafia.
They are a mafia. Um, when they were pressing me about the details, I said, "Oh, there was also, this person involved. Um, they, were part of giving me the letter and things because I wasn't sure if that was an IC or an OC event." And they were like, "Cool, okay, so we're actually going to have a sort of sting operation happen." And I was like, "Okay,"
They go,
and it was
that
really,
sounds icy to me. Let's hit him.
yeah. And they sort of rolled their eyes. They were like, "We know exactly who you're on about." We were like, and because me and you had stayed with this group of people in E1, I was like, "Yeah, I could probably identify them if we went to their camp."
Mhm.
And they were like, "Cool, we're gonna wait till there's a couple of judges, a couple of um, more militia people. I don't know what they're called individually, but
Oh, militia officers?
militia officers, yeah,
Yeah,
maybe."
I
But
guess
they
you
were
got
like,
magistrates are the ones who actually run the courts and will sentence you to death, for example. But
"Yeah."
otherwise, you've just got a militia officer. You might have some deputies for just random people they press gang in the street. But I think that's it. I think.
But yeah, there was a group of about nine of us. So it felt like a bit of a squad. But they got suited up and they were like, okay, we're gonna go to their camp. We're gonna surround them. You're gonna go in, and we need you to identify the two people who are complicit with this event. I then found out that because I thought I was still maybe on trial for murder or I was still a threat of being called a murderer. um, that's when they explained to me that what I'd handed over was actually just an antidote because the previous season, or the previous event, one of the Crimson Reapers was murdered, and this was a taunt basically from the murderer saying, "Hey, we this is the antidote that could have saved your, I guess, Crimson Prince is the title that was used."
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, Prince of the Crimson Reapers. That's their equivalent of like a boyar.
yeah, yeah. So I'd passed on basically like a confession, and that's why they were so angry and they were screaming. So I was like, oh, great! I was really relieved for maybe 30 seconds that I was, safe. And then they're like, actually, we're now going to go and throw you in the lion's den, and we're going to jump. There could be a knife fight, and I had no weapon on me. I was like, I'm probably safe in this scenario with the militia, but if this goes pear shaped, I could be dead. So we start walking to the Black Scar camp, and Navarre is buzzing. Navarre at night is just a wonder. It's really lovely, and I was like, this is about to be disrupted. Whoops. And we get to the Black Scar camp, and there's three people sat around the fire. And now the militia had told me, when you go in there, go straight to the people who, you can identify. Um, but at that point, the three people who are around the fire are no, like they're not to do with this at all. I don't know them. And I walk up to them and I'm just like, "Hello, I'm looking for these two people. Could you tell me either their
You're
names?"
doing
And
an excellent
they,
job of not dobbing in this player.
yeah, exactly. Um, and I was trying to be really subtle, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know how I can ask for this unsubtly because the player is so distinctive physically, um, with their costume and stuff. And I didn't want them to know that I was involved. I was trying to remain as sort of under the radar as possible. And they were just like, here's their name. We're off to an orc party. Do you want to join us? And I was like, I really wish I could right now. That sounds amazing. Uh,
And
and they walked
you've
off.
got like snipers just surrounding the scene,
Yeah.
listening in,
And
and
I,
you're
I was
talking about an orc party.
I was really looking forward to this whole party as well. Like they were talking about the food that was there and stuff, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry about what I'm going to do to you." And at the same time, I was really worried because I was like, "Oh, the militia have just seen me walk up to these people. These innocent people might now die because
Oh
I'm
god.
talking to them. That's more guilt for Danica."
Yeah.
Um, and luckily, they sort of one of the militia officers was like, "No, no, no, no. It's clearly not these people." So we went back out, and I was like, okay, here's one of the names. That's pretty much all I can give you at this point. And this was maybe creeping towards 9 o'clock, 9:30, and they were like, okay, what we'll do is instead we'll meet back tomorrow, and we'll maybe go and do another sting operation. So that evening, we're just getting up to general Pinewheel shenanigans. And then the
General
next
shenanigans.
morning, we go monstering, and just after monstering, I see one of the militia people, and he's like, "Oh yeah, there's been an execution. It's all solved. It's fine. Don't worry. Thanks for your help." And it was a lovely little bit of role play where they were just like, "Are you okay? Is there anything that we can do?" Sort of thing. And I was like, okay, so someone's dead because of me. Like, is it one of my friends? Is it someone I know, OC? Uh, what's happened with this crime? And I didn't find out that event really until I think 5 minutes before timeout. I think it was quite close to the end, where it was someone who I didn't even know, who wasn't a part of Black Scar, um, who I think Black Scar had basically been just passing on a message in their behalf, and to keep the distance between this person and the crime, they had hired a Varushkin just to go and deliver a message. So actually, this whole thing had been escalated way further than they thought, and someone was executed. I still don't know who,
It was a
but
player called Millie, part of the
Millie,
LARP Leagues
yeah.
podcast, fantastic podcast, and she played a character called Agni, and I think Agni. This is all over Facebook, so this is old news and publicly
Hmm.
known, so I don't feel too bad talking about it. But essentially, for one reason or another, this Agni had had this Prince of the Crimson Reapers killed, and then from what I've heard on the from the other side of this equation, because I died in the meantime whilst you'd be gone, torn apart by a plague wolf, great time. But the Agni side of things was because of those sting operations, the heat was really stepping up, and
Mm,
I'm probably paraphrasing, but then Black Scar put a lot of pressure the other way of like someone else needs to take the rap for this. You
yeah.
know, we've like you just said, we're passing on a message. We're definitely not complicit. Wink, wink. And we shouldn't be punished for this attempted murder, because when you give the antidotes for poisons, when they're applied to somebody who does not actually have the poison in their system, it acts like an impale, so it immediately downs you.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So if you look at, I think it's the Black Gate
Mm,
is the apothecary, sort of like the mini cookbook, the apothecary section, and there's a
yeah.
couple others for like virus lunare and stuff like that. And if you, yeah, it's great. If you're poisoned, they cure you, but if you're not, they just down you because they're so potent in themselves. And I think if when you were hiding in the bushes and hiding by the tents, when you saw that person almost die, that would have been the effect of the antidote.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that at all. So okay. But yeah, I think what it has done though is it's given me a lot more confidence to go and actually generate game,
Mm.
because I've seen the effect now of players passing on things and generate game for other people. You know, someone generate game by coming my way and saying, "Can you pass this on?" And my decisions as a player creates, you know, a bit of a knock-on effect. And so now I'm like, oh, I want to go see what else I can get up to and sort of mess around with. But that whole experience of feeling these really real emotions and not knowing what to do about it because I'm a bit of a new player, it, you know, there were so many lovely people who were like, you should probably do this, don't get into trouble. And it helped me network as a new player. So I think if you
Mm.
can get involved with something really like even close to that, you're on a good path.
Fantastic. And this is, of course, just your first 6 hours of that event, right? Starting on Friday evening.
Yeah, yeah, literally, it was over in a blink. But at the same time, I had military council, and I was being an adjutant for the Iron Helms, and that in itself, if I had none of that plot concerning the Crimson Reapers, and I just had being in military council, I would have had a fantastic time, because watching those people, the generals especially, interacting and getting angry with each other, it was wonderful. And I think, to be fair, the highlight of my whole event was one of the generals started. They sort of brought in like a cooker. And started making everyone like rice and vegetables. I was like, this is amazing.
Nice.
And when you've just come away from battle and the stakes are really high and people need to calm down and it's cold and someone is just, you know, making heaps of warm rice, it's beautiful. It's really cool. Um, I'm trying to remember what else happened. I think um, the situation with the Crimson Reapers. I don't know what Danica's relationship is with them anymore. I think it's probably fizzled out. But on the Saturday night, I was drinking with Wix Rest, who are wonderful LARPers, and they've really welcomed me into their sort of group. And one of them was like, "I'm heading back to the league," and I was quite drunk. I was drunk on some like I think it was like matcha rum or something. But
Nice.
I was like, oh, I might send them like a letter, and I sent them the equivalent of a drunk text at like 10 a.m.
Hey, Crimson
like
Reapers, you up?
literally, it was like, hey guys, sorry for everything. Please leave me alone. Many thanks, Danica. You can find me here. And I just sent that, and because I didn't really know the context of money at this point still, which I have had to learn now. I think I gave this guy like 2 thrones to take a letter to them. He was his friend anyway.
Oh
And
God.
yeah, so
That's very
he was
prosperous. That's
really
very
happy,
virtuous. That's very virtuous of
very
you.
prosperous. And Wix Rest were looking at me like I was some kind of baller. And I was like, nope, I am just a new player who doesn't know the context of money. So you take this letter. Um, and that was really funny, because it was only when I came back to you guys and I saw your faces that like you spent what? I was like, oh no. um,
Yeah, it was that. I remember the bar crawl we had. I think it might have been the Saturday night, where you were very kind and you brought us a drink, and I was like, oh, that's lovely. How much was it? And you said, oh, it was like 4 crowns. It was this small little bottle of like sort of flavored liqueur, and I was like, you've been scammed. you've, you've been absolutely scammed. It's like paying
yeah.
85 quid for a cocktail in London. just just
I
like a
mean, it's going to be like that anyway. I
yeah.
feel like it wouldn't be long until they're all £85. But I would. That's my one piece of advice: is learn what the money is and what it's worth, because I had no idea. I was spending thrones on brownies and having just a great time. Um,
Living your best LARP life.
Living my best LARP life. But yeah, I guess moving away from like things that were happening to me, but things were happening to our group, the Pine Wheels. Like all I can think about between, over this, is it called the Long Dark, the winter?
Yeah, that's what we the between E4 and E1 because it's something like 5 months. That's usually referred to
Yeah,
as the long dark, with the longest dark being we had an E4 just before COVID hit, so that's sort of like September 2019, and obviously that pandemic started in November-ish 2019.
that's so cool.
Then we had sort of 2.5 years until the next event.
That's,
So that's
yeah,
the
that's
longest
really cool.
arc, but sorry, long answer to a short question. Yes, longest arc is between E4 and E1.
Yeah, I think this whole long dark period, all I've been thinking about is what can we now do with the Pine Wheels now that we've got players involved who want to go out and do stuff, and it feels really nice coming in as a new player and having something to do. Like I feel like I've got a purpose with this group. So so all the sort of seasoned LARPers who are making those decisions and saying, let's start something that new players can come in and contribute to. Like I think it's really, really helpful. And um it's it's nice to have like our own community in Varushka because a lot of our friends are Navari, and having our own base and things that we can develop is it feels like it just makes it feel a little bit more real. But anyway, the Pine Wheels obviously have a bit of a gambling spirit, and it was the night market, which I've never experienced before. And we were sat there, sort of selling our gambling games, and we came up with the dog racing
Dog
and
racing, it's a
dog
playing
racing.
wolf.
It's a playing wolf, and it allowed us to network with other nations, which I hadn't really had a chance to do, which was so fun. And it got a bit wild and a bit rowdy, but I think that's the nature of the Pine Bowl. So I'm really excited to see how far dog racing goes. Um, the next event because it's a real moneymaker.
Oh, it is. I had a couple of people come up to me afterwards and say, like, is this, like, are you serious? This is basically a scam because you've got a 1 in 4 chance to double your money versus, let's say blackjack or something. I'm not sure what the odds are, but I think they're above 25%. I think the
Hmm.
house wins 53% of the time in
That
blackjack.
sounds right.
Yeah, I'm stretching my Vegas knowledge, but it's let's call it 50-50-ish. This is 4 to 1, and you're not even getting like 4 to 1 returns. You're just doubling your money, so it's really not great for the people playing. But when we were sort of getting really excited about it, we'd have someone sort of saying, "And they're off," and the Plague Wolf is thundering into first place, and getting very excited, getting very animated, almost like a loudspeaker. And we had a crowd of 20, 30 people at one point
Yeah,
watching
yeah, it
us
was really
slide
cool.
playing cards across the table.
And it was great because we had people staying for more than one round. I think there was like a couple who stayed for maybe like 7 rounds.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Um,
just
and
firing
I
money
mean, we
down.
took all their money, but it was wonderful. And I felt really bad because I think that row of traders, I think we might have blocked because people were so engaged with what was going on, and it felt great at the time. So,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
people
the
were
night market's wonderful.
yeah, people were able to get around us, but yeah, there was 30 people in the road. It's going to be a bit of a traffic jam. But I did
Hmm.
notice that when people finished with us, they'd just go to stalls next door because they were selling beer, they had
Oh,
cakes
that's
and
good.
stuff like that. So it felt really good to get that amount of footfall in our
Yeah,
little nook.
yeah. And I think us being incredibly loud probably helped because it was really rowdy.
Oh yeah, a lot of
Um,
fun. That's the most fun I've had in a non-battle scenario for a long
oh
time
wow.
at Empire. Yeah, it was so good, so good,
Yeah.
especially with
I
the
mean,
there was two freeborn, and because it's their festival of the broken wheel, they're allowed to lie just for one night a
mm,
year. So they played, they lost, and then they lied that they'd won. That worked, and then they lied and said, "Oh, no, you haven't given us the right change," and then they ran
that's what
off.
that was.
Yeah, with like sort of
Oh wow.
4 crowns were thrown each or
Hmm.
something. So yeah, that emptied our coffers. But
That's really funny because I thought that was just an admin mistake. So I was going off at our Voloff like, why on earth did you just give them all that money? And I didn't realize it was a scam. That's cool.
yeah, the freeborn would usually, if we'd made a mistake, they would say, "Oh no, you've given us too much. Here's the
Hmm.
remainder back." But broken wheel, they were like, "No, this is still too little." And because there's
That's
like
really
30
funny.
people just clamoring for their change or despairing at their loss, it's just very hard to notice. So they did a fantastic job of like the sleight of hand and sort of playing the gas man law. in that
That's
scenario.
really funny.
But yeah,
Ah, that's cool. That's
yeah,
really cool. I didn't know
such a cool event. Um, we're currently running at 54 minutes.
that.
Now
Ooh.
it's exactly 55 minutes. I guess my closing question for you, and I do have others like what was the MC tent like, and what do you, what you're looking forward to in the broader LARP sphere, which I think we'll maybe do as separate episodes. So
Mm.
my final new LARPer episode question, so question number three, is: do you have any hot takes, any controversial opinions, or even what what was reality of LARP like versus what you thought it was before you came in? Anything that's really stood out to you?
I think I've said this a lot. I don't even necessarily think it's a hot take, but God, I hate fighting with Navarre. I
Sorry.
I've been with them. So I it was I think it's called the Battle of the Fallen Petals. I think that
Yeah.
was so for me that was an E4 highlight. That battle, just Verushka holding the gate, the shield wall being pelted with arrows, and every single time I've taken the field with Navarre, I've been really trying to get some kind of defensive line to happen, and there'll be maybe 4, 5 really just stoic Varushkans ready to throw their all at these orcs, and then maybe 30 Navarre who will stand there then just run. And it's been really infuriating because I don't know a lot about battle tactics. I'm not really well versed in, like war and how battle lines work, but I know that if there's a lot of people holding a lot of shields, the likelihood that they can come and kill your friends is slightly less. And just hearing like Navarre fade, I never felt so much anger. And I walked out of that battle. I mean, it was more of a run, but we come out of that battle, and there's sort of the Navarre heads of training. There's some people who are really like, we did such a good job. And I was like, oh my gosh. And there are some, I'm not going to absolutely, shatter all of the Navari fighters, because there are some really, really great groups of people and some really strong fighters. But um, I find it really hard to match the Varushkan fighting style with the Navari fighting style, and that's been really frustrating. But maybe that's not a hot take. Maybe that's just
Oh, I
me
think that's
being
that counts as
picky.
hot takes. I think any hot take, it will take your listeners and divide them in two, where half will agree and half will disagree strongly.
Yeah.
What you've just done there is bullied all of Navarre in one go. So
I'm
that's a
sorry,
hot take.
Navarre.
That's a hot take.
I'm
But
sorry.
yeah, they
They've welcomed me so much, and yeah.
and look what you've done to them. Yeah,
Look
they're
what
very
I've
much
done.
like a skirmishing force and not very good at taking like a stand-up fight. And then
Yeah,
on the flip side, Varushka is, people covered in metal with shields and axes that are very much designed to have that, stand in a line and beat the shit out of each other because Varushka will win. Yeah, the sort
yeah,
of opposite ends of the spectrum. And in theory, those two forces should work well together because they complement their like each other's weaknesses. But like you said, Battle of the Fallen Petals, the Dornish and the Navarre got absolutely slaughtered, like
oh, it
hundreds
was
of players killed.
yeah, it was and being in the military council tent after that battle was something else. But actually, like, just quickly linking back to the field, when you're like, our Varushkan unit works really tightly. It's led incredibly well. The communication is awesome, but we are so focused on that gate fight that we don't know what's happening until we came out of the Sentinel Gate. And I've never felt like it was the first time where I nearly cried in LARP, because watching all the Dornish, people waiting for them to come home. Danica, like, lost a near boyfriend in that fight, and so I was like, wow, this actually is like, it's starting to affect me personally, and I was like, this is really hard to watch. I think that might be where some of the Navari anger came from. It's just the watching the loss. But when you're on the field and you don't know what's happening to the other side, all you can focus on is yourself. And so I came out of the battle thinking we did really, really well. And I turned around and I was like, oh no, it's not the case.
Wait, aren't they meant to be? Where's the rest of that nation? Oh my
Where's
goodness.
Dawn?
Yeah, where is Dawn?
Dawn.
Gosh, I think, like we said at the start of the episode, this podcast is entirely for opinionated and not fully informed opinions to be espouted like they're fact. So I think that
Mhm.
is possibly my favorite hot take of this entire podcast. So thank you for that. And
No
uh, I think I was sort of loosely nearby, but I do remember being at that gate as well, and I had a like a Dornish household. Three of their yeomen came up, and they were like, "Oh, have you heard of House Blah and Lance Blah?" And I just gestured to maybe like 15 knights that had got back, and I said, "That's all of Dawn."
Oh
And
no.
as you can see through the gate, because um, I think the law of it is you can see through the Sentinel gate, but only in a straight line, so you can see what's directly outside it, but that's it. So basically, you can kind of see what's happening on the field, but not anywhere else. And I said, look, there's Druge there, and you can see them cutting apart bits of Navarre and bits of Dawn. No one else is coming through that gate. And seeing
Mm.
their faces, they didn't drop initially. It was just disbelief. They looked at me like I was stupid, or I'd just gone skibbity and then they realised what I meant and sort of verified it themselves. I just watched them get crushed.
Yeah,
And
it was awful.
yeah, OC, I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And then
Like
IC
a
is this like
hamster in a printing press.
hamster in a printing press. But as a stoic Varushkan warrior, I really felt for them, and I was like,
Yeah,
don't cry, don't pity them, just nod and leave. But even then, feeling, seeing those feelings on someone's face, and they realise that all of their friends are probably dead, and they've just found out from a casual conversation with some guy. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a pinnacle LARP moment.
yeah. And seeing like the bodies outside the medic tent just
Oh
sort
my
of
lord, yes.
pile,
God, like
crazy. And we didn't suffer heavy losses as Veruca, but we did suffer some. And I remember like one of Wick's rest coming up to me like, have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? And I was like, no. And then it hit me that this person might not be coming back. And that it was, I think, obviously like I'd lost my husband that event, but for me like the scale of loss hit me more on an OC level, and I was stood there just reeling. And then I was like, okay, this is actually really bad for the Empire. And when you then sort of carry on playing, you realize the scale of these things that you've just been a part of.
hmm,
And that for me was like, okay, I can't wait to see where this goes next and what the consequences are. um
definitely. And the idea of being able to in a bar, people would be talking about it, and
yeah,
you'll be able to say, I was there.
yeah,
Because
that's
I
really
imagine
cool.
the Navarre might say, you know what, we hate fighting with Farushka because they left us to die. And then from our
Probably.
point of view, we held that gate, we stopped the entirety of the force getting flanked from the rear, then we got crushed in. And we were fighting a circular defense for like what 50, 60 minutes, just getting
Yeah, it's rough.
machine gunned with that like the archer unit that the Druge had. They put what 400 arrows into us at
Hmm.
least because the
Yeah.
referees were picking them up and taking them back to the archers, which
It
was
was so depressing to
it was
watch.
incredibly demoralizing to see. But great, we
Yeah,
survived. Do it again.
here's more. Yeah.
Here's some
I
more.
do you know what I a quick last note about battles as well is when you realize that the people behind the orc masks have been your friends the entire time.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
that for me was like, how dare you? I just made you lunch. And there you were trying to kill me while I was cowering behind a shield, fighting for my life. That was really funny to find out that the whole time it had been our friends pelting us these arrows and we had no idea.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
the glory of LARP. Well, thank you
The
for that hot
glory of
take.
love.
That is a fantastic way to end this episode. I would love to, if you're game for it, I would love to do another one sometime on your MC tent experiences
Yeah, yeah,
and what
yeah.
that's been
That'd be
like,
cool.
especially as a new player, because jumping to adjutant in two events is a fantastic rise to power. So I'm very keen to find out a bit more about that next time.
Absolutely.
Cool. Do you have any final words of wisdom for those listening who might be new to the game before we sign off?
Oh, none of my words are wise. I think just yes is your best friend. Saying yes to things, saying that just giving it a go. Because I think once you get over that sort of social stigma, you are open to like a whole new world. I've got some other LARPs that I'm now so excited for. And also just going and immersing yourself in the world first. Don't put the pressure on yourself to learn all of the mechanics at once because you'll just drown yourself. There's so much out there, and the part of the pleasure of LARP is learning those things in game rather than out of game.
Mm,
So just let it take you.
fantastic. Let it take you. I think that's the title
Let it
for the
take you.
episode. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Amber, and thank you everyone at home for listening in. We're going to be signing off now, but look forward to the future and another episode like this very soon. Until then, catch you
Bye.
then. Bye.